I'm a media entrepreneur based in Paris, and I currently work for a nonprofit organization called the Global Editors Network. I'll do a little bit of self-promotion here. And we organize an international news summit in Paris next June. This organization networks editors-in-chief around the world, more than 900 editors-in-chief around the world, and focuses on innovation in the newsroom and exchanges good practices, best practices in the newsrooms. And believe me, it is difficult to get journalists change their way of behaving and their attitude towards information in this new landscape of technology. So, and it brings us to our discussion today. I mean, these traditional media organizations have a lot of difficulties in adapting. And meanwhile, you have all these pure players, you know, and creating new kinds of way of new information, new kind of distributing this information, and they're growing. They're growing. I mean, the Huffington Post, for example, nobody, you know, could imagine that it could challenge the New York Times so quickly. And same thing for we have here BuzzMedia, and we have Populis that maybe are less known on this side, at least of the Atlantic, and I'll be glad to let them talk and present themselves. But the whole idea is that these newcomers are quicker, faster, stealthier than the big traditional organizations, news organizations, and they are going to explain us today how they are going to become themselves big global media players. I mean, the next, Spence told me, the future Bertelsmanns of this new information era. So I would first like to ask Populis and then news media, BuzzMedia, to present themselves, because I must confess my ignorance, and I know you have millions of users out there, but I was not so familiar. Maybe this is why I was chosen to run this little show, because I get this transatlantic twist in the debate. I know the Huffington Post, of course, because now we have in France we have a Huffington Post France, but I didn't know Populis and I didn't know BuzzMedia. So maybe you would start by explaining who you are, how you define yourself in this information world, and then the next part of the talk will be presenting your strategy to become the next media mogul in the next 3 years. Okay, so Populis, maybe you start.
Hi, I'm Luca Ascani. I'm co-founder and chairman of Populis. Populis is a publisher network across Europe and Brazil. We have over 50 million unique visitors. We are creating content. We have 100 of websites and content on car, fashion, food, sports, and technology. So each site has from 10 to 15 writers with an editor-in-chief and bloggers that are creating content for the site. We are the third pole of information in Italy after Corriere and Repubblica. We are the first independent network in Germany with blog.de. And in Brazil, we started beginning of this year with 1 million unique visitors. And in August, we were already 10 million unique visitors. And we are larger than Twitter and LinkedIn in Brazil.
Okay.
Well, it tells me that you've been spending a lot of time with Kim Kardashian and Lil Wayne, but BuzzMedia is a pop culture publisher in the U.S., and we publish over 40 different sites. We've got an audience of 110 million users, and in the U.S., we're first in entertainment news. We're first in music. We recently bought Spin Magazine as an example of the kind of sites that we publish. Our audience is actually 40% international, which means U.S. pop culture topics travel very, very well internationally. There was a panel yesterday on YouTube about topics that travel on a worldwide basis. Clearly, U.S. pop culture topics are amongst those. We've got about 260 people in the company. We've been around for 6 years, and we continue to really, and we'll get into this strategically, just publish deeper and deeper against our topics across these different brands that are subsets of each of these topics.
Right. You've been called on the, I did a little search, and you've been called a blog eating media network on the, blog eating, like a blog ogre or something?
Yeah, I think it was originally thought, probably that there was going to be this portfolio of thousands or tens of thousands of different sites, and there was this democratization of content that would actually drive distribution in a similar way. I think what we've seen is that the digital media is actually very similar to all other mediums, which is there's a very large amount of consolidation of audience around a much larger set of topics. And the reason why this happens is that these larger set of brands can produce deeper and deeper engagement levels and reinvest in the content, and that the content matters the most. And people are really going on the web, not really for the long tail. So nothing against the long tail thesis, but we really have an anti-long tail thesis, which is audiences consolidating around big topics. And within those big topics, they're going for the best experiences. And those best experiences are tending to be delivered by a really small subset of brands.
And what audience are we talking about for you?
For us, it's 18 to 34-year-olds in terms of demo.
And in terms of quantity, I mean, how many?
About 110 to 120 million users, depending on the month.
Right. Okay. Now, Huffington Post, maybe a short presentation of where you stand now.
Yes. So my name is Jimmy Maymann. I run the commercial side of Huffington Post. I came on board 18 months ago when we sold our business Go Viral, which is a video distribution network, to AOL. The week before, Huffington Post was sold to AOL. So I always joke with Ariana, she took all the media glory and we took all the money. After the integration, Ariana convinced me that instead of lying on the beach for the rest of my life, I should join her and try to make HuffPost into a global media brand. So that's really what I'm tasked with. That's what we've done for the last 18 months. We've kind of taken the model, looked at what worked well in the US, tested it out in Canada and UK because those markets are English speaking, and AOL has a significant presence there, so it was easy to test it out. What we found out was that there's a number of things that actually makes a difference when we launch locally. So one of the things that have always worked well for HuffPost is, of course, the ability to get high-profile bloggers to be part of the network, to get people to engage on the platform. So that's one of the things we really needed to work hard on in those new markets, because without an Ariana, that was actually very difficult, because Ariana is kind of what drew all that attention in the US. So as we kind of sophisticated the model, we found out that the 10, 15 next market we wanted to do, we probably needed to do with partners. Because we in a number of these markets we don't have any presence, we don't have any brand knowledge. So if you get out of the media circles, actually there's not a lot of people on the street in Paris that knew anything about HuffPost, which is the reason why we chose to do a partnership with Le Monde. Obviously that gave us a lot of credibility, and it also meant that we didn't have to start from scratch tying up with them. And actually now 10 months in, we're now the biggest online news site in France. So it paid off to kind of partner up with a big established brand.
I don't know if you're the biggest online news site in France. I mean,
Pure play.
Pure player, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We are the biggest pure play online news site in France now, and obviously, as I said, the partner has been part of that success, and also another thing that's been important has been to kind of replicate the Ariana thing when we go into these markets. So in France, obviously, we hired Anne Sinclair to come over and be our editor-in-chief. In Spain, we did the same. We hired Montserrat Dominguez, which is a famous radio journalist. In Italy, we've done the same with Lucia, who's also a famous TV reporter. Okay. So that's kind of been the things that's been important for us to kind of roll the model out. And as I said, early signs are that we're actually getting good traction, and we've got the formula right for the international markets.
Okay, just a little question about AOL and Huffington Post. Is this going to marriage going to be durable? I mean, is it sustainable? We heard Ariana talk about the fact that she'd been contacted by people who were interested in buying Huffington Post. Is this agreement solid, or is it two really separate organization with two different logics?
No, I think at the end of the day, HuffPost decided that it was time to sell, and they took the money, and now there's an owner, and that's AOL, which means that we need to navigate under that ownership. Of course, there's a lot of interest in HuffPost. We believe that it could be the media brand of the decade, and so there's a lot of investors. So there will always be a lot of interest. But I think AOL is very happy with the ownership, and I think as long as they're happy, they'll keep it. And Ariana, and myself, we kind of get to do what we think is right for the brand. So I think, at least for now, AOL is the owner, and will stay that way.
Okay, so now understanding how these pure players are going to progress, we understand that you're replicating your model in the different countries, and the same formula of attracting highlights, bloggers, and through partnerships. What is your in BuzzMedia? What is your strategy in the next 3 years to really go global?
Yeah, right now we're very much focused on the U.S. Given the size of the market, and also just given what we see as the opening, which is the limited amount of money that's been invested in content to date. If you think about the amount of money spent in digital over the last 15 years, probably 1 cent out of every dollar has been spent in something that's really content related. And what we see is the audience are really using digital platforms for these passion topics where they have a relatively inelastic demand for this content. So we're continuing to invest against these categories, and what we're finding is the more we produce, you get consumption that's more than 100% return. So people want to consume more, and I think it's really been a limitation on the content creators. You talked about storytelling and traditional media companies. The traditional media companies really haven't migrated well to digital because the storytelling is different. People are following these passion topics and want these experiences 24/7 in all kinds of media formats. So right now we're very much focused on delivering on that promise.
What's the manpower in BuzzMedia?
Yeah, so we have about 275 people.
And how many journalists there?
About 120 writers.
Right. Okay. How about you? How many journalists? How many?
We have 30 people internally and 3,000 bloggers premium that we are paying for the content they're creating. So they are not in the office, but it's a virtual team. So for each blog, so I was saying there is around 15 people.
And typically a blogger that you pay would get an average of.
The editor-in-chief is between 3,000 and 5,000 euro per month, and the bloggers, it depends on how much they contribute. They have a budget. Each editor-in-chief has a budget that he's using for the content. Okay, so the main content you pay for is in the on the blogger side, right? Okay, absolutely. And so what's your global expansion strategy? I'm Italian, and we started because there's not a large market for content and advertising, so immediately we deployed that strategy as an international company. What we just did in Brazil showed the scalability internationally of our business. We are a new publisher, and a new publisher means that you're new on the way you are creating content, the way you distribute the content, and the way you monetize the content. The way we are creating the content is with internal team that's coordinating external bloggers that are experts on what they're writing, and they're all professionals. The way you distribute the content, you have to consider how people are consuming the information. And on the web, on our experience, we have 30% of the traffic that is coming directly on the site, 25% of the traffic is coming through social, so Facebook and Twitter, and 25%? 25, and 45 is coming from search, so people are searching information. On the other side, you have to define how you monetize your traffic. Well, we have a strong reach in the countries. Of course, we are taking the brand awareness budget. So we are working with agency, etc. But we are working more and more in what is the social branded content. So we are working with the clients to create specific content for them, content seeding, video seeding, or creating specific blogs I don't know, we have a client for electric cars that needs to create a content about electric cars around Europe. So we are able to find the best bloggers about this topic and deploying 6-7 websites in different languages about this topic, and they are sponsoring the blogs as so they're creating a lobbying about a specific topic, and we are able to develop that. So I think
the content is produced by the bloggers. I mean, they produce it independently.
Independent is
So
they decide
how does that work?
create a topic.
It's just a topic.
Yeah. And then we, of course, there will be advertising. We will cover the new cars, etc. But it will be content seeding, and we'll sponsor content. It will be defined. But this is a new way to monetize. This is a big international budget, and clients need, because content is king is an old expression, but content is always the best way to communicate the value of a brand. Is it a text? Is it a video? And you can share this content. People can interact with the content. So at the end, we see that more and more advertisers, clients, they see that there is a strong need to feed the social, because content is also the feed for social and search, no? Because without that, they will be empty. So the first phase for the social network was let's have fun. Then what you communicate to your fan, you have to communicate the content. So we are able to deploy this content for the brands.
And you have the same policy with the brands. Are you producing content for sponsors or?
Well, I think on the advertising side, we're definitely creating large volumes of programmed experiences for brands. I think, if you look at a lot of the discussions at this forum and otherwise about programmatic buying and what the difference is and where publishers are going to fit into that ecosystem, I think the publishers can bring a lot of value in creating these programs. And so when you ask kind of how we're staffed internally, we've got about 40 people that just work on an internal agency that are producing these kind of solutions for advertisers that are very highly contextual. A large amount of content is involved, obviously, in those kind of programs. Right.
So you look like you. How would you define yourself? Comparing one another. Are you competitors? Are you? What's the main difference between you two guys? Is that there's this? It's more blog oriented and you more journalistic oriented?
I mean, I would say, just from learning about the company, we've talked a little bit yesterday, I think we're focused on two topics, if you think about it. We're just focused on music and entertainment. We picked very large topics because, again, we have this media thesis that the audience is going to really consolidate around very large sort of kind of the top of the bell curve. And within those topics, we're producing large volumes of content every day. And our audience is therefore coming almost exclusively from direct domain traffic. So while social's become a bigger component of it, over 60% of our audience is direct domain traffic, meaning people are coming back to these smaller subset of brands every day. And I think you can speak for your business, but I think people are coming to a larger set of properties around a larger number of topics, more through search.
No, yes, 45% is search. I was saying 25 social, 30 direct. It depends then on the categories, but for sure in music and celebrities it's different than on cars, food, or fashion. How the people are consuming the content. What we see that from on mobile, for example, the direct traffic is around 70%, and mobile started to reach around 25% of our traffic this year, and last year was only 8%. So we are deploying more and more a multi-device consumption of our content, and so we have to adapt all the content and the advertising on that. But the main difference, we are international, not US, because it's a crowded market and it's an amazing market, but I prefer to concentrate it on the other markets. So this is the main, and we are in different topics, but I think we can collaborate in international campaigns.
So, and your next countries would be after Italy and
no, we are already operating in 11 countries in 7 languages. The next step is to create a direct sales team in France and UK next year, because we have not at the moment. Brazil, for sure, we want to focus more. In South America, unfortunately, I can enter in a business. I did this analysis. I can enter in a market when the market has at least 1 billion investment on display. So not search, only display. This is a market becomes interesting. So I think a next region that will be very interesting in the future will be Southeast Asia. So all the Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand area, it's booming as in terms of advertising. It's a multi-language area, and it's quite similar as Europe in terms of how you can deploy a multi-countries content.
How about Asia for the Huffington Post? How does that sound?
Asia is the next tier of markets on the list. So we expect to announce a partnership in Japan within the next couple of weeks. And we are negotiating in South Korea and India. And are trying to find out, what can we do with China. China is obviously very interesting, but at the same time also a very difficult market to do anything with unless you want to be regulated by the government, which is not the DNA of Huffington Post. We want to give people a voice. So we're looking at that. So Asia is definitely something that's on the list, and that we're expecting to launch our first editions beginning of next year.
And your model still being audience plus advertising, not being pretty straightforward. You continue on this.
Yeah. So we're still an ad-funded model. So yes, we need to create an audience, and we need to find ways to monetize it. We're not going to have subscription services. It's not the Huffington Post way. So.
And the audience is dragged mainly by news and politics and economy, or is it all the other features like celebrities, like music? I mean,
actually, the majority of the traffic, to your point, is news, politics, and then lifestyle, celebrity is of course also a big chunk, because there's still a lot of people when they're there that's going for that as well. But if you look at the entries, most of the entries is coming for the news and the politics.
Right, and again, the audience global. How many visitors a month?
Globally, now we're reaching more than 60 million UVs. 44 of them is in the US, so US is of course still by far our biggest edition.
Right, and you talked about the mobile a little bit. How is this mobile acceleration driving your business? I mean, how's it changing the way you produce information, the way you conceive information, the way you edit, the way you... How does mobile influence your day-to-day business in your fields?
I think for us it's two. One that's a little more challenging than the other. I think from an audience perspective, it's giving those people that love these brands the ability to connect with these brands all the time. So what you're seeing is the average number of visits per brand go up as you have more and more platforms, whether it's mobile or tablet. And I think that's been a very positive thing. The more challenging thing has been obviously on the advertising side for mobile, which is as a display vehicle, it's a smaller screen size, and it's harder to create the level of ad engagement that you can on a desktop environment.
Right, but then the reading experience is totally different. I mean, how do you cope with that?
Again, I think that people are consuming people are passionate around brands that have passionate audiences. People are consuming small amounts of content all the time. So we don't do a lot of long form content, which would be, I think, a little more challenging. We do a lot of video, we do a lot of short form, but we do it constantly. So if you're following your passion topic, what you'll see for a site like Tyler Durden, people are coming back 7 or 8 or 10 times a day. Now they're doing 2 or 3 of those on mobile. So it hasn't really been cannibalistic, it's been additive. Again, for these top brands, people are now consuming them just more times throughout the day. Again, different on the advertising side.
And knowing that your music is one of your themes, I mean, main themes, are you going into the listings and concerts and buying tickets for are you going in that direction?
I think that's something we've thought about. I think that, a lot of people talk about, commerce and different opportunities for publishers. I think one of the things that gets lost in that conversation is that brand advertising is really in its infancy digitally. If you look at the amount of dollars being spent online, DR is what's been the driver, right, of digital for the last 15 years. And so we think there's a huge opportunity in really solving some of these challenges for why the efficacy of brand advertising has been so low over time. So that's really our primary focus. And I think, again, for any publisher, I don't want to speak for these guys here, but I think focus is a key issue.
Okay, and how about you?
I mean, on the mobile,
yeah,
it's amazing that we have like 30-40% more page views from the users. So they are reading more content, in particular the galleries, etc., are spending more time also from mobile than from the web. It's maybe because there are more direct traffic than eventually search traffic in that case. Of course, it's a challenge, the advertising, because there is not yet a perfect solution to monetize this kind of traffic. So yes, there is specific campaigns. On the social branded content, it's easier, because when you can create a specific content that is both video and text, etc., that becomes the content itself, the way you are monetizing the traffic. The banners make no sense on that. But in general, I think the banners are not making sense anymore. So we still have campaigns on, of course, on display, and are important. It depends on the market. Some markets are more developed, some less. What I see, and I think it will be more efficient in the future, is if the advertising market will move more on GRP. And so, because, for example, on our side, we have 50 million unique users, but we have only 500 million page views, because the users are reading 10 pages. We don't have a forum. We are not a forum. We are not a webmail. So there is a lot of sites that have a lot of impression per user, so Facebook, etc. But if you want to contact the users once a day or once a month, of course, I have a lot of unique users to contact. So you cannot pay the impression the same level that you are paying for someone that is reading 10 times, seeing 10 times the same impression. So this switch will be very important for the display advertising, I think, in the future.
Okay, and how about your mobile strategy?
No, mobile is of course important for us as well, but we see it as an addition, as I think Tyler was talking about as well. For us, it's not an either or, because the long form part of our site, is not really a good experience on the mobile. So if you really want to kind of read some of the longer articles, it's not great to do it on the mobile. But on the go, it obviously adds a lot of value. It's less than 10% of our audience that's actually accessing the sites via the mobile.
Oh,
and I think that
is it because your whole ADN or DNA, sorry, or the way you edit your service is not mobile compatible? Or?
I think it's just you don't get the same experience on the mobile. It's a different experience, and it works on the go. But if you really want the HuffPost experience, the thing is also the HuffPost experience. If you really want to kind of be part of that, then have a voice and get the fullest potential out of HuffPost, you need to kind of go to the site and log in. As soon as you log in, it's a different experience that if you just kind of look at it, and those features, those things doesn't transfer easily online, so you can't give it the same feel to the mobile. So
you're not betting that you're not betting that in 3 years 80% of your consumers are going to read you through this.
I don't think for HuffPost that'll be the case. I think, as I say, it's a great complementary thing. It'll be on the go, and we need to obviously make sure that it's optimized for that. But I think if you want the HuffPost experience, you either do it via the iPad or via the internet. Without any doubt, we don't foresee that we will have the Facebook problem that most of our audience with access is via the mobile, which means that we will have monetization problems.
I think for us, it's definitely trending there. We've got about 25% mobile. I think it'll probably be at 50% within 3 years.
Yes, I think so as well. I will divide tablet from mobile first, because they are two completely different experiences. But for sure, mobile is growing. We see from 8 to 25% in a year, so it's huge growth.
Yeah.
And the way they are consuming the information, the way you expose, is completely different. So it's a new challenge. It's very interesting. We are testing. Since a year, we adapted all our sites. We create apps for all our sites. So we monetizing a different way for the moment is an important part. It's not the majority, but of course it's a challenge, and no one has the solution ready at the moment.
I think when you think about publishers and mobile, I think you've got to think about whether mobile is cannibalistic, and I also think you've got to think about the kind of ad solutions you're providing. I think the Facebook issue is running into both of those issues, not just one of them.
Are you using a responsive design for your sites, all of you? Okay. Yeah. And okay, so before we go to the questions, I wanted to just, for a brief conclusion each, I mean, where do you see your company in 3 years? What's your goal? Like, you know, in the Monaco Media Forum 2015, I guess there's the guy has an objective. He wants to put this thing on the moon. It's great, by the way. I loved the presentation. And what about you? What is your objective?
You know, I think that someone is going to build a pure play large digital media company. I think if you look at digital, it's not that dissimilar to how cable evolved, in that a small number of companies were actually able to gain a large amount of size. Whether you look at Discovery, you look at Viacom. And I think they did it by going after relatively large topics and being the premier publisher, the best experience in those small set of topics. And that's really what we're focused on.
Funny you mentioned TV. Are you going to go into television? And you, of course, you already are trying to, well, you are in television. You?
In terms of distribution through broadcast or cable, or in terms of video content? Video content obviously is a big part of the storytelling for all publishers. I do think there are opportunities to actually distribute premier experiences through broadcast and cable and other types of TV-like experiences. But again, I think those are more complementary, more marketing-driven than they are the kind of the primary storytelling. Again, I think the storytelling for digital storytellers and publishers is quite different than TV and film.
So your resource for development for the next few years will be mainly to buy other companies or to develop.
I think it's to continue to develop the programming thesis around these topics. Again, what we find is that we cannot satisfy our audience, whether they're indie music fans or they're country music fans or whether they're celebrity fans. So what we really want to do is continue to invest in our platform, our publishing platform, our editorial, and our storytelling to go deeper and deeper on these topics. And really, ultimately, if you're asking where we want to be, we want to drive these brands. I think ultimately there's going to be a limited brand universe in the digital landscape like there has been in every other medium. We feel that we've got 40 brands, you know, not all of them are created equal, but we think we've got among the premier brands in our categories, and we want to keep investing against those brands.
So maybe Spin TV or Spin Radio?
Possibly.
Okay.
Of course.
On the moon too?
No, on television too. I think there is a strong merge. In the next 3 years, we will see this. It's not defined, but of course the web TV is growing, the internet TV is growing as a market. And if you have a strong brand, if you have your users, we already produce around 35% of our total content production is video. So I think there is a strong movement on that direction. And so, for sure, will be more and more video television oriented, also working with celebrities that are in television at the moment. They used by the broadcast, but they can become a broadcast themselves. And so, creating with them a specific content and then distribute through the web TV, for sure is interesting. For us, it's continue to deploy our international strategy. We are a unique player across the market. There is no one else that is doing verticals content like Hachette or Hearst is in traditional market online. And so we continue to develop this across the region that makes sense. And of course, multi-device oriented.
Okay.
The commercial sensible answer is that we want to be the biggest online news provider. And so that's both for online sites and also for online TV streaming, which is obviously what we're trying to kick off in the US right now.
How's TV doing?
It's still early days. It's only 12 weeks in, but we've seen some very, very good early numbers. So we're very happy with that and keep pushing forward. We'll kind of support it even more next year. And obviously we need to see that the model works commercially in the US before we start to roll it out, but it's definitely our plan to take it to other markets as well. So the less commercial answer is that, you know, having heard the presentation just before and seen what the Felix Baumgartner just did, then of course we should potentially sponsor these guys that are going to the moon, because it would be great to put HuffPost on the moon.
Okay.